everyone, and welcome to Fintech Talks with TFN. I am Akansha Dimri, editor and founder of Tech Funding News, and we are covering live here at IFGS 2024 from the prestigious Guildhall in London. And we are taking this opportunity to talk to some of the brilliant fintech experts who are transforming the ecosystem of UK and Europe altogether. And joining us today is Alexander Wulff, who is the CEO and founder of Scaleup Finance. Welcome, Alex, and thank you for joining us. Could you really describe us about yourself and your journey, and also what Scaleup Finance does?
Yeah, so I almost don't know where to start, but we are a group. We are 6 co-founders that started Scaleup 3 years ago, and it was ultimately to solve the problem that we had been, experiencing on our own bodies doing financial management in our previous startup. So
when was it founded?
Scaleup in
Yes.
2021.
And what were you doing before that?
Something completely different.
Yes, what was that?
I think I was 20 years old. I just got into Copenhagen Business School, and I started a completely different company, which was a construction tech company. And I spent almost 11 years, my entire 20s, building that company. Drove it to profitability. My previous co-founder is still running the business. And then, three years ago, I teamed up with my new co-founders in Scaleup to kind of solve the problem that I had been sitting with in ABU.
And how did you meet your co-founders?
So we are actually 6 co-founders, but it's probably me and my co-founder Nikolaj that goes the longest way back. Very random kind of way we met each other. I definitely don't aspire to become a politician, but I actually signed up to become part of a youth party at the age of 15, 16, and Nikolaj did the same. And we were kind of asked to join the board.
So you wanted to, sorry to interrupt, but you wanted to become a politician, and you ended up becoming a fintech founder.
No, I actually definitely didn't want to become a politician, but my experience in high school was I was quite ambitious. Knew I wanted to do something great with my life. And I feel like this is probably what I'm describing now is probably the same in many high schools all over.
And where was your high school?
In Denmark, in Copenhagen.
Okay.
But I just feel like I was trying to be ambitious, trying to study and learn things. But a lot of my classmates, not to throw them under the bus, but they were just not like doing a lot of things, and they weren't really interested in learning. So I thought, where can I meet other great like-minded people? And maybe a youth party is such a place because when you are at this kind of age, then typically there are some pretty interesting people doing signing up for youth parties. That's how I met Nikolaj.
Oh wow! And how did you convince them? Were they already convinced that yes, we need a product like Scaleup Finance and we should launch in the UK? How did this go?
Yeah, so now we are fast forwarding quite a lot. Maybe if I just kind of finalize the story about me and Nikolaj. So me and Nikolaj after we got to know each other, we were like, okay, we really have some of the same kind of aspirations and want to do the same. So we started our very first company together, which was just an e-commerce shop. Stopped that after a couple of years, went our separate ways. Nikolaj went into finance, became an auditor. After that, started a fintech company, and I, went on to start this construction tech company. And then, so the story about how it came together with Scaleup was, me and Nikolaj, we went to my parents' summer house with a bunch of other friends. We have a lot of the same friends, and this entire summer house trip, Nikolaj did not talk about anything else than this new idea. Him and this other guy, this other serial entrepreneur, talked.
How long was the summer trip?
It was like a weekend, and every single day, Nikolaj just thought, Scaleup Finance. We want to solve this product or this problem. We are going to build this product. We need some more co-founders. We need a co-founder CEO. And actually, I didn't think about joining Scaleup at that point. I was just very intrigued because everything Nikolaj described resonated with me. I had been going through the same problems he described. I loved his and Torbjørn's take on how to build this product, how to launch it. And it was actually on the way home to Copenhagen. That was like a 1-hour trip. I was in my car. One of my other friends who knows me very well, he said, Alex, I've been listening to you now for probably 2 or 3 years, talking about you want to build something new. You wanna like, you say your role has been served in a BU, and then like it was like a light bulb moment. I was like, yeah, I need to join this ship. So I made the decision like this. I called Nikolai up and I said, Nikolai, you've been talking so much about scale up. I can identify and relate to everything. I'm willing to jump ship, join you guys if you want me. And then he said, yeah, like let me just call Torbjørn first. 10 minutes he called after he called me back and said, Alex, let's do this.
Oh wow, that was amazing.
That's how fast it goes sometimes when you are founder or just in startup world generally. You know, you have a tendency, you want to move fast.
I think you should have the drive, and once you have the drive, and I think founding a startup is one thing, and then sustaining it for a very long time. I think the first 3 years are very difficult, and then you get your funding, and then comes the most difficult part of sustaining it more. But tell me more about Scaleup Finance. What does it do? What is the product, and how is it helping people?
Yeah, so maybe the best way to describe what we do in Scaleup Finance is to really look back at what has the last 10 years in fintech really, or fintech really didn't start until 15 or 16. That's where you saw the rise of a lot of new products, spend management platforms, invoice management platforms, new payroll systems, recurring bills, a lot of these kind of things. And I was around in my previous company where there was no fintech tools. Like we had an accounting system in a BU, and probably I think one of the legacy payroll systems. So a lot, like I had physical expenses on my desk, and when we invoiced our customers, a lot was actually sending a letter, like the invoice in a letter through the Danish mail service. Then in 15, 16, you get this iPhone moment kind of for fintech, which was open banking. And you see the explosion of a lot of tools, but all of them have so far been very focused on administrative financial tasks. Like in Scaleup, we call it operational finance. And what we wanted to build in Scaleup Finance was a strategic financial management platforms that really helps you with, I'd say, 3 things in particular: management reporting, budgeting, and forecasting. So the most ironic thing for me, and the reason that I believe so much in what in Nikolai's initial and Torbjørn's initial kind of vision, was that I had gone from a phase before fintech where a lot was like on my desktop in spreadsheets. Then I had a lot of tools suddenly, and it felt really smart that I could, automate a lot of my payroll spend, invoice, or the transactional layer. But 3 years ago, before I left that company, the thing I couldn't wrap my head around was, now I have 5 or 6 different systems that are helping me out on the operational level. But every single month I had to export CSV files and other data file formats, take all this data right back into my spreadsheet, this monster of a spreadsheet that every time you go out, and if you can ask any founder or any kind of business owner, how do you manage your company from like...
I'm a finance guy.
They'll say, I use a spreadsheet. So, and that's the issue. Like spreadsheets is a presentation layer and an engine at the same time. It's very manual, it's very error prone. And this is why I think what we're doing in Scaleup is quite amazing and exciting, because we are going to give customers and companies a whole new way to kind of approach, assess, and run their financial operations.
So I just want to understand over here that there are a lot of neobanks and embedded finance and payments and lending companies and B2B banks which are actually working on this kind of products. So what is the wide gap which Scaleup Finance is basically filling up and setting itself apart from its competitors? Would you be open to talk about your competition?
Yeah, well, our competition, we have one competitor. Excel.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say that there's not other companies out there trying to build strategic financial management platforms. There definitely are. But whenever we talk to a potential customer, in 99% of cases, they are using Excel or spreadsheets. So what we are witnessing here, in my view, is kind of a second iPhone moment within fintech. So the first iPhone moment was open banking. Then people started adopting a lot of these point solution kind of tools for the administrative part of their finance function. But these monster for spreadsheets you build up yourself, you are taking out the data from the bottom of the pyramid kind of systems, and then you're using your spreadsheet for that. And that is the wide gap, that there has so far not been any platforms or software systems that allows you to do very strong management reporting, budgeting, forecast. It is all of these things are done in spreadsheets today.
Okay, that's very interesting. And I think because of that you're filling that up, you also got funding at a very early stage, I believe, which is very crucial and challenging to secure. You got like 8 million and you got impressive investors like Crowberry Capital, CDEX, and Fin Capital, Circle Law. So how did you, from a weekend getaway startup idea to a funding of 8 million from these esteemed investors, how did it happen? What's the journey over here? How did you get into that network?
Oh yeah, well,
long story.
Yeah,
I would love to hear.
I know fundraising is it is one of those hot topics among founders because
especially in this tough climate.
Exactly, and in Scaleup we know quite a lot about it because a lot of our customers also fundraising, and it's essentially what we help them prepare to do. But I'd say for any kind of startup, fundraising is this very long kind of just like dating. So as a startup, you have like certain criteria of things you look for in an investor, and at the same time, a lot of investors, they have certain criteria and things they're looking for in a startup. So you will have like a very long, you will have a period with a lot of meetings, and a lot of these meetings are only 30 minutes initially because nobody want to waste each other's time. So you go through this kind of phase where you meet a lot of people, and then you might be getting some intros, and you talk to maybe an investor who says, hey, this does not fit our box because we have this thesis and we are only investing in these kind of companies, or it might be early stage or late stage. But then say, hey, but I know actually 5 other investors where I know it's perfect within their thesis. And then you find where some investors, hopefully, where there's kind of an overlap of interests and what each individual is looking for. And then you go into this phase that is called deep dive sessions. So you will have like 1.5, 2 hour long sessions with investors where you go into like just product, or just your go-to-market strategy, or just the team, or just the financials. And then of course, you then come into like this phase where there's also a negotiation part. And that's definitely also an element. You can be totally in love with an investor and they can totally love you back, but there are investors that.
So what was your pitch?
With Scaleup Finance?
Yeah.
That was basically to build a new finance home for SMEs. Actually, normally I don't call it just a finance home where you can see how your company is performing, access all your metrics data and do a plan. I call it actually the business home. So, and this is kind of a pretty long vision. It's probably 5-10 years out in the horizon. So the whole foundation for what we do in Scaleup Finance is building a strong financial management platform. But our vision in Scaleup is to extend that into much more of a business home where you can access all kind of data points, not just financial data, non-financial data and metrics too, because this is very, very important as a business leader. Let's take another view on what is a company actually. What is a business? Business is an economical unit. So that means revenue, expenses, profit. And this is very important because if you don't understand if you're making money, like it's only a matter of time before you go out of business. So of course, finance from a business leader perspective, your financial numbers and metrics performance is the most important thing when you wanna log into a software system and understand how am I performing, like what is our company. But then after you have that under control, then you want to look into more like forward-looking indicators. It could be like some of the integrations we are building out in Scaleup Finance are not financial integrations, it's Google Analytics.
Yeah.
Because people in the SME space right now, they have 1,000 different systems.
Data.org.
What?
Data.org as well.
Exactly. But they have so many different systems and they don't have one system where they can log in and see how their company is performing in general. The thing is, I read a report a couple of months ago that showed that since 2016, a typical SME were using back then 8 SaaS tools, SaaS systems. Today, it was 2022, they serve it again.
This is for fintech, for finance itself.
Just any kind of SME, any kind of business. So they had on average 8 SaaS system software tools they were using. That number in 2022 was 130. So you have seen this explosion of software, of tools. And what do all these tools have in common? Well, they all have dashboards, but they have dashboards for a subset of your data. And in Scaleup Finance, we actually just made a big summary overview. We tracked all the different SaaS tools we're using, software. Found out we have now 70 different systems in Scaleup Finance.
Integrate.
I think I might have logins to 30 of these systems, and maybe I regular log into 5 of those. So this is where there is some gap in the market, some wide gap, because large enterprises, they use ERP systems. ERP systems are very extensive kind of systems that both have full accounting features, CRM, supply chain management, HR, everything into one single system. And everybody in that company kind of uses it for whatever they do in their department. Of course, enterprises also use other systems, but this is kind of the single source of truth. The only reason ERP works, in my view at least, for very large enterprises is because you can customize it 100% to whichever large organization you are, if you use 20 consultants in 2 years. So no SME in the world has these kind of resources. So when you look at the SME space, a lot of the tools out there are basically broken off pieces of ERP that is like its own little category, because SMEs need to be able to go into the market, grab a product down the shelf with a very easy implementation, easy onboarding, and something that is specialized to them. So that is our vision in Scaleup, to connect all these dots and provide this kind of finance home, business home, where you can see much more than just your raw financial data. And already today we are integrating and taking in a lot of, especially sales data, very important. There's a lot of metrics that you cannot calculate from a business performance perspective without doing different kind of calculations between some of your pipeline or sales data together with some of your, you could say, your cost data from your accounting system.
That's a great insight, and as a small business I would love a software which could actually integrate all the tools which I'm using, and I have to go through every month just to pay invoices or just to chase up people to get paid. So I understand that. I will definitely check that out. But at the same time, I want to understand, with your funding, what is the growth potential Scaleup Finance is actually looking at?
My prediction for the category, the market we are in, is that it's going to be enormously big. I think it's going to be one of the biggest within the fintech space, but it will. This is probably pretty comparable to when Salesforce started. They were one of the first CRM systems. They started in 1999, and I think so. Now we are, 25 years later, and they are, latest time I checked, the 33rd biggest company measured on market cap in the world. So they also brought about a big revolution in terms of becoming this very, very need to have kind of tool for a lot of companies. A little bit like ERP did some centuries earlier. And who's the big ERP player today? SAP. I think they are the 50th biggest company in the world. So when I look at what we're doing, because these two categories, ERP and CRM, they kind of also replaced a use case or a process, a pain, where before they came along, you were kind of using spreadsheets. Also, like, for example, bookkeepers, right? Before you even had a computer. There's a reason it's called bookkeeping, because you actually had real books. And then you moved kind of to spreadsheets before you actually got the real ERP system. So what we are doing with a financial management plan, I think it has the potential over the next 5, 10, 15 years to become a category that you are going to compare a little bit to ERP and CRM, because it is not a nice to have system, it is a need to have system, and it's probably going to be used and become such an integral, important part of your business operations that, well, of course I need to be bullish on the market I am, but I truly do believe that this is how it's going to turn out over time. And the interesting thing is, it has just started. So I talk a lot about the iPhone moment for whatever, and there's this famous concept about the iPhone moment when an underlying.
But that's true.
Yeah, and the iPhone moment for fintech was open banking. The iPhone moment for what we are doing in Scaleup has been the adoption of the first wave of fintech tools. Because if people have all their data on their desktop, in spreadsheets, physical expenses on their desk, we cannot integrate to it. So we are kind of an orchestration layer because we integrate to all these data sources, and on the backbone of that we process that and give like this final output and planning features. So this is kind of going back. We said 1999 for Salesforce. This might be like being in 2000 or 2001 or 2 or something like that for CRM. That's where we are right now with what we are doing.
That's lovely. Can you tell me more about your team? Like, how big is it? And how many, you got your funding recently, so do you plan to hire as well? And how's the team diversity like?
Yeah, so I think we are up to around 80, 90 people now in the company. We have offices in Copenhagen and in London. And then we have, of course, also a lot of remote, especially our product and tech team is like spread all over the world.
What are you hiring in right now? Is hiring a challenge? Is it the biggest challenge?
It always is. It always is.
Oh gosh, yes, it's the biggest challenge, I guess. Yeah, in the market. But like, how do you, when hiring already is such a big challenge? I know I'm a founder as well. And how do you maintain to match the code of ethics of diversity, especially when you as a founder have something on your shoulder to represent the team as one of the teams which represents the whole ecosystem altogether? How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because I think there's a lot of pressure on all of us, right? Being a brown founder also, I understand that.
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. So first of all, I think getting a proper, strong setup internally. So for us, it started with me hiring our chief people and culture officer because I definitely don't have time to do that myself. And then, of course, I think when I think about diversity, I think a lot about the main thing I think diversity is going to bring you in recruiting processes is that it expands your talent pool. Because now we're talking about diversity or team diversity, but there's like a question before you even talk about diversity, and that is the most important job as a founder CEO is getting the most talented people. And I think what diversity and this whole kind of the topic that has been going on for a long time, what it has really yielded is that it has suddenly, people are now much more aware of how like removing biases and prejudice especially in the initial phase, and you bring people from a diverse background into the recruiting processes, so you actually on that basis are able to find even more talented people than if you were only looking like in a very slim area of the market.
Okay, that's a very different perspective altogether. But yeah, I think we all are working towards it. And
but it's I think when I look at, because as a business leader, the most important thing, like number 1, 2, and 3, hire the most talented people. There's also a question about the talent pool. So right now I can see there's a very big difference between our Copenhagen office and our London office. I think our London office,
because London has that big diverse crowd as well.
It's much easier in London for very natural reasons due to, you could say, the talent pool. In Denmark, I think 90% of people working in Denmark are ethnic Danes. If you just take our London office, I think it's max 10 to 20% of our employees in London that actually are ethnic British people.
But I'll tell you what happens is that, like, I've lived in Amsterdam as well for 4 years, and I moved because me and my husband both got jobs over there, and we were actually invited by our companies to come over there.
Yeah.
Now, because Denmark, Nordic countries are places where only international students are coming, so they will have more job perspective, but they try to move towards Northern Europe and London and US. But at the same time, if startups and fintechs like you will open positions for them and actually, work on their visa, then it will be more diverse, which like big product companies, the big fours have done so far to get immigration in Europe. So yeah.
Very much true.
Yeah. Anyways, I think this is a topic which we can go on, but we are short on time. So I would really like to ask some questions for our readers and viewers for you as a startup founder. So could you really describe the major challenges that you faced in the early days of your startup, because we already know the moment when you decided that you want that idea?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think so. The thing about Scaleup Finance was we created some this crazy virality effect 4 or 5 months after we started, and it went very, very fast in a very, very short amount of time. Then we opened up London. So in 2.5 years we went from being 4 people in a very tiny room in this crappy office in Copenhagen to then suddenly being 90 people. And there are so many phases on that trajectory, on that growth journey, where dynamics change. So I'd say a lot of the things, a thing that has surprised me quite a lot is how much you need to be focused on the organization as part of that scaling. I think among founders, what it's typically called is growth pains. So for example, there's one very big dynamic change from you are, let's say, 20, 25, 30 people in the company. When you are that kind of team, there's almost this kind of family tribe, sentiment internally. But then when you cross 25, 30 people, then suddenly everybody cannot know each other, and you start building up a little bit more like departments, and that changes dynamics extremely much. And you need to be so focused on keeping the right culture, making sure that, and then at the same time, this also induces you, then you need to have very strong processes, very strong systems, a lot of the things that you to some extent as a startup hate. I don't want to call it corporate because it's not corporate. It's essential to drive a successful company, strong processes and systems. But it takes time and effort.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting point, and I can only imagine that, because I have 7 people who are working for TFN right now, and when from 7 goes to 17, it would be more crazy for me. So I can understand what you mean. So I'm just trying to cut short this interview because there is so much knowledge you've already shared, and I would love to know that when you were pursuing your startup idea of Scaleup Finance, was there any resource you inspired or motivated you, or any books which helped you in your entrepreneurial journey?
I do read a lot, and I'm a sucker for.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, I remember half a year ago maybe I read the new biography about Elon Musk twice within the same month. Really? So there are. I can't even remember the names of all my favorite startup books, but I have also shifted quite a lot recently to YouTube. Actually, to interview that has the same kind of format as this one, much more long format. I really love Lex Fridman, and he's interviewing some of the big guns. He has everybody from Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, all these people in 2 to 4 hour long sessions where it's really, really valuable. And then there's my favorite podcast right now is probably the All In podcast. All In. Okay. It's 4 entrepreneurs from the Bay Area in the US, who have they were early in a lot of the big tech companies in the US, and now they create this podcast. It's gaining a lot of traction. I think it's pretty popular right now.
I had my first millionaire.
Yeah.
That is also nice.
So I'm really surprised about the quality of content you find on YouTube, because you can access some of the greatest business leaders, and they will actually be quite open about challenges, how they think about basically everything. I'm trying to, or I have kind of diverted a little bit of my free time from reading books to actually consuming more of whichever founder, author, because then they have a YouTube video probably explaining some of it.
That's lovely, and thank you for joining us at Fintech Talks with TFN, Alex. Thank you for your time. We really wish you best of luck with Scaleup Finance, and it's a great product that you're developing, and we would like to see the next future plans that you have for Scaleup Finance. And thank you so much everyone for joining us at the IFGS 2024, and stay tuned for more insightful conversations coming right from TFN. Thank you.